Look at the monkey, look at the monkey, look at the monkey up in the tree.
A very distinct group that traveled out west was the Mormons, a religious group founded by Joseph Smith. They were known for their Great Mormon Trek out to Utah, where Brigham Young succeeded the Smith and founded Salt Lake City. However, their polygamy practices led them to be tarred and feathered.
One can also see groups of immigrants heading out west, mainly of Irish and Chinese descent. Immigrants were working on the Transcontinental Railroad. Thus, their move west was filled with discrimination, as they were not protected by law, nor could they be part of unions. This changed, though, when the Irish founded their own union, known as the Molly Maguires, and the Supreme Court determined that native-born American Chinese immigrants could not be stripped of protection.
Cowboys contributed to the western frontier through their skills of herding bison to the nearest railway station, shipped off in refrigerated cars to be sold at the market. Fencing and the disappearance of grass both led to the downfall of the cowboy. Farmers also had problems with the natural environment of the land, forcing them to abandon the ground when water was severely lacking.
Finally, ranchers developed due to the creation of the barbed wire, which allowed people to stay in one place while the railroad carried the meat. There was no need for the long drives that the cowboys made anymore, which effectively killed the cowboy.
The first result that comes out of the clash between Western Americans and Native Americans is the Treaty of Fort Laramie, which set aside land for the Indians and provided temporary peace. However, with gold rushes right around the corner, this treaty was about to be broken. The reservation system that was set up by the white people was first broken with the Sand Creek Massacre, which was the murdering of Indians during peaceful negotiations.
This led to what is known as the Indian Wars, which included battles such as the Battle of Little Bighorn, in which Indian lands were raided for gold, and Wounded Knee, in which Indians believed they would be protected with a sheet of cloth known as the Ghost Dance. The Nez Perce, headed by Chief Joseph, tried to preserve their tribe and escape to Canada, but did not make it in time.
The Indian Wars ended with the Dawes Severalty Act, which gave 160 acres to heads of families to try to emphasize individuality, not tribal community. Helen Hunt Jackson successfully captured the lives of Native Americans during the Gilded Age through her book, A Century of Dishonor. Was John Gast's American Progress. This painting showed how Providence guided Americans to move west. In the image, Lady Liberty is seen making her westward trek along with caravans of settlers.
Life in the West was different from life in the East, causing conflict regarding finances. The people of the West, mostly small farmers, found that to survive they needed to work together. This led to the rise of associations such as the Grange, the National Farmers Alliance, and farmers' cooperatives that allowed farmers to purchase equipment, supplies, and other necessities for better prices. Many farmers in the West also supported the goals of the Populist Party.
One of the most prominent members of the Populist Party was William Jennings Bryan. Bryan was a leading figure in an important financial debate regarding currency. You see, currency at the time was backed by hard currency, especially gold, under a theory called the gold standard. Bryan argued that currency should be backed by silver too, a theory of bimetallism. He professed his idea of free silver in his famous Cross of Gold speech. Another popular idea in the West that arose at this time was the greenback, which is how we know money today. It meant that money could be based on credit instead of gold or silver.
And the steel plow was far more efficient than previous forms of the plow, increasing output and profit for the average farmer in the West, and led to many large bonanza farms.
Now, the railroads had a huge effect for the American people. There were mass migrations from people that originally lived on the East Coast out to the West, because whereas before people had to walk or they would take caravans out west, now they had the railroad, which provided a very easy and much faster way to get out west. And that also led to the development of bigger cities. The Transcontinental Railroad was the road that connected the East Coast to the West Coast, and it was the Union Pacific building from the East Coast and the Central Pacific building from the West. So the railroads were a big part of monopolies during the time, and they often had different prices for different people through things called rebates. So basically people that had connections could get a rebate, and so they'd be able to ride on the railroads for free or for a much lower cost than everyone else. One of the court cases to try and equalize the playing field for the railroads and make it a fair system was Munn v. Illinois, which basically gave the states power to control the railroad and other different public uses, and so they could control the railroad and regulate the different trade and stuff that went on it. And then the Wabash case, which was much later than the Munn v. Illinois, sort of undid the Munn v. Illinois. It said it took away a lot of the state control and made it more federal, and it created the Interstate Commerce Act, which did the same thing as Munn v. Illinois, but did it through the federal government, and made it so that there were more constant prices throughout the different states and trade was easier and fair throughout the different states.
There are many reasons why someone would want to move west, but gold and silver rushes played a huge part. In Nevada in 1859, Comstock Lode became the most popular mine for not only gold but silver too. This led to an advancement in mining technology and the emergence of mining towns. It was rare, but some miners became rich.
The largest land rush in American history was the Oklahoma Land Rush. Congress opened the land that would soon become Oklahoma, an area previously occupied by Indians. A huge reason why the West was so desired was because of the Homestead Act, which promised 160 acres of land to a family if they farmed and used the land for at least 5 years.
The West became very popular for the African American population because it offered much more freedom. Many African American men became cowboys, and several others also became soldiers fighting off the Indians, and they were known as Buffalo Soldiers.
Due to the mining towns and cowboys, women saw an opportunity, running boarding houses and becoming prostitutes.
When the U.S. annexed Texas, the Mexican government still had not recognized Texas as its own independent state, so they saw that as America taking part of their country. Also, Texas had a disputed boundary with Mexico, and Mexico thought it was the Nueces River, while Texas thought it was the Rio Grande River. So, as America stationed troops up to the Rio Grande River, Texas also saw that as, oh, they're putting troops on our land, that's a sign of war. And so, Mexico then declared war, and the Mexican-American War started. There were several different stipulations. One of them was Mexican Cession, which was a huge land grant given to the United States. They got most of what is now considered Southwest America.